Hello, I'm Karen Elliott. If you're one of those people who's tried everything and the pain just gets worse, or if you've ever been told by a doctor, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to learn to live with this, or if you want to prevent health problems you see all around you, not just for yourself, but for your children, then welcome to a program that may not only change your life, but your entire understanding of health care. We're going to tell you about a procedure that cures nothing, but because of its ability to restore body function, apparently can help hundreds of conditions. The guest we have with us today was once an invalid, confined to bed in agony, unable to even dress or feed herself. Today, she appears on television, radio, and in newspapers around the country, talking about a little-known procedure that restored her life. Would you welcome the founder of the National Awareness Campaign for Upper Cervical Care, Luella Harris. Luella, you grew up in Kenya, East Africa, where you contracted polio. Am I right?
That's right. In fact, before you go overseas, you have to have all kinds of immunizations, and exactly 8 months after I was given the polio vaccine, I contracted polio. So I've grown up living in a wheelchair and working with braces and crutches, and that is an inconvenience, but that is not an incapacity. I got married, got my master's degree in counseling, and had a very, very active life, but then 5 years ago, I began having pain crawl up this left arm, into my shoulders, down the right arm, and that was terrifying for me because, see, Karen, this is how I function, okay? These are my hands and my feet. In fact, I shook hands the other day with this little old lady, and she felt the calluses on my hands, and she says, darling, you need to use hand cream. And I says, well, honey, you just shook hands with my foot, you know? And so when that pain began coming in, it was a life-threatening situation. By 6 months, by the time it started to 6 months later, I was completely bedridden. Richard had to dress me and feed me, and the pain was so bad that I could not even turn my head and sit up and watch television. Well, we went from doctor to doctor to doctor to try to find some help, and the only thing they were able to help me with was drugs, medication, and some exercise. When a case like that, you'll try anything, Karen, okay, just to get rid of the pain, to try to have a life again. Well, we had heard that chiropractic could help, and when I got in there, it was like walking into like a science lab. There was so much technology and so much precision in what they did. They focus on one thing, and that's the atlas, the top vertebra of the spine, right here, just right at the brainstem area. And they did a neck scan. They did all this type of measuring to see what the problem was. They did a neck scan right here to see if the atlas was out. Because if that crazy 2-ounce bone right there at the top of your spine is out even a fraction of a degree, it can cause health problems from head to toe. So they did the neck scan, and then they did a leg check, because one of the indications that your atlas is out is one leg is shorter than another. Well, my right leg was a good 1 inch and 3/4 shorter than the other, and I thought that was because of polio, not because of the atlas. And then they took this series of x-rays focusing on the atlas in 3 different planes, and then that doctor spent 45 minutes analyzing the shift and the tilt and the rotation of the atlas. He spent so much time, all this preparation, and they came in, and I just lay down on this table, and he said, now I'm going to give you the correction. And this type of chiropractic procedure is done either by hand or by instrument. If it's done by hand, it feels like a soft massage or a quick wrist thrust or a light tap. And just focusing right here, and that's all he did, okay? So he said, now just lie back and relax. Now, I hadn't been working in months, Karen, and I'm thinking as I'm staring at the ceiling relaxing, this guy looks good, but he's a quack, you know? He has done nothing for me. And then about 20 seconds after that atlas correction, I began to feel the pain just come out of my body. It felt like water coming out. Well, and not only that, my whole body began to feel like it was shifting. It was like my whole right leg began to move down, because when the atlas is tilted out of the proper position, it literally can pull one shoulder down, one shoulder up, and the whole pelvis distort and pull a leg up. My whole body began to shift right there on the table. Well, Richard and I were just blown away, because we had fought this for 18 months. My medical doctor has said, just medications, nothing can be done for you. And when I married this man, I was so active, and he ended up with having to treat an invalid. And that just was not something I could deal with. And every time I think about that experience, our backs were against the wall before we knew about this upper cervical care. Well, I was crying on the table, basically, and the next thing they had to do was they take an immediate post-X-ray or an immediate heat reading, because this work has to be so precise. They've got to make sure they've done it right. After that, I got back in the car, and by the time we got into the car, my low back pain was gone. Now, remember, Karen, he only touched me here, all right? And that night, my sleeping patterns began to change. I've always had trouble sleeping. Well, in 48 hours, though, that pain began rushing back because the atlas had been out for so long that it just didn't want to hold the position. So the first month or two of staying under care was grueling, being in the office and getting it set. But the pain began to decrease until the point was, by the end of 4 months, I was 70 to 80% completely pain-free, back to work, active again, and very, very pregnant at age 39. Now, this was not something Richard and I had planned, okay? He did not write it in the Daytimer. And so we went to the chiropractor's office, and we said, we have something to tell you. And he said, you're pregnant, aren't you? And I said, I would like to know how you knew that. And he said, well, actually, not every woman, but numbers of women that get under my care here with this procedure, after about 3 to 4 months, are able to get pregnant. And I'm telling you, he did not tell me that in the initial consultation when I went in. This was absolutely new news to me. He said, Luella, you don't understand how huge the impact on the health of the entire body and all body function can be when the atlas is out of position, where the brain cannot communicate with the body and the body back to the brain. But instead of me telling you that, he said, you need to meet some people. So we began to meet a lot of his patients. We met people with migraine headaches, sciatica, attention deficit disorders, knee problems, feet problems, digestive problems, hearing problems. It wasn't about the conditions. In fact, this procedure is not about conditions. Upper cervical chiropractors don't treat conditions. They simply correct the atlas so the nerve interference between the brain and the body is removed and the body can function again. Well, when Richard and I knew that this was huge, we had suffered so long because we just didn't know about this. And I said one day, honey, I don't know how we're going to do this, but we have got to form a nonprofit educational organization on a national scale that tells people about this procedure that's available. And since then, we have had the joy of seeing hundreds of people's lives turned around with all kinds of conditions that had been just like us, tried everything, nothing worked, and all they did was simply get their atlas examined and corrected.
Luella, we have some other upper cervical patients in the audience. Let's find out what they've got to say. Start in the back and work forward, okay? All right. Hi.
Hi, Karen. My name's Paul Anderson. I'm from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I had this dull hip pain that I went and saw a sports doctor. And they gave me cortisone shots, worked therapy. And I lived with that for 5 years until I met this doctor of mine. And he showed me the adjustments. And I said, heck, I'm going for it. And I hadn't had the pain since. And with that, I also had chest pains that's been going down the side of my chest. And while I was doing that, that took care of that. And now I'm going on having a happy life, doing things, going out, working out, golfing more, playing more softball. It's a small procedure, but it's been a big impact in my life.
You've got your life back.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing. And I think you had something to share.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
My name's Jody Cabina. I'm from Roswell, Georgia, and I'd like everybody to know that I started seeing chiropractors at age 17 for chronic back pain, and then at age 33, I was diagnosed with severe chronic fatigue. I couldn't work. I was in bed. I had severe pain. I tried everything. I educated myself. I went to different healers, tried different modalities, and I would get some relief, but it just was not solving the problem. And so I had known about upper cervical for some time, but I could not understand how adjusting one bone could help me when I tried all these other forms of chiropractic, and my back really wasn't any better. So out of desperation, and several people highly encouraging me to try it, I tried it, and after one adjustment, the pain left my body immediately by the time I'd left the office. And I'm working over 40 hours a week. My energy's back. The depression's gone. And before that, I had no hope because I had tried everything.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And I believe you had one to share.
Yes, I certainly do. Thank you. My name is Mary Speaker. I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I had been declared totally disabled from saline breast implants, chemical contamination, and it left I had many ravaging symptoms from these diagnoses: multiple sclerosis, a brain tumor in the postfrontal area, systemic lupus, 100% disability, chronic fatigue syndrome. Like you, I was in bed, severe fibromyalgia, malabsorption, so on and so on and so on. And these were all diagnosed by board-certified physicians, university-based. And it was a very discouraging situation, and many of the modalities that I used to try to get better were hospitalization for traction, and I used sauna therapy, NSAIDs that really didn't help at all. I used physical therapy sessions which weren't effective at all. It just goes on and on and on. And in 1984, I was introduced to a beautiful upper cervical chiropractic, very compassionate doctor who in 2 months actually changed my life. And at that time, I was in a severe major pain syndrome because of the severe allergies. I couldn't eat any food, and even taking an aspirin would throw me into a major pain syndrome. And as I just said, within 2 months of his very light therapy, all of a sudden, this pain went away. I felt naked. I didn't know what it felt like to be without pain. It was very difficult. It used to hurt to think. All of a sudden, my brain became unglued, and I could think. Remember, I was considered totally brain dead at one time with severe polyneuropathy. And so my life began to come back, and I really feel it was the hand of God that led me to this beautiful chiropractor. And
Mary, that's amazing.
well, God is good, isn't he?
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, there are only about 2,000 doctors worldwide trained in this procedure, and we're fortunate to have one of them with us today. Doctor, let's say I have pain that is in my arm. Why do you just treat the top vertebra and not from where the pain originates?
Because we've found over the years that when the atlas is out of its proper position, it can cause the entire body to be off balance and constrict proper nerve flow from the brain to the organs and limbs throughout the entire body. Your feet may hurt or your arms may hurt, but the cause of the problem may not be in those areas at all, but in your neck. Take a look at this. See how the atlas or C1 has been twisted, shifted, or rotated out of its proper position and may cause one shoulder to be higher than the other, one hip higher than the other, making one leg shorter than the other. All this can create head, neck, shoulder, arm, and back pain, hip pain, knee pain, feet pain, tight hamstrings and calf muscles. The atlas being out of its proper position can cause the entire body to be imbalanced. The worst part is that because the atlas is right there at the brainstem, if it is out of position, it can constrict vital nerve flow to the organs throughout the entire body. If this continues to happen, then, over time, it can cause degeneration of organs, muscle, and cell tissue.
Has anyone else come such a long way to share a story? All right, let me zip around here and we'll get you all.
All right. I'm Sandy Eslick from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I've had chronic muscular pain as long as I can remember. But what really knocked me off my feet several years ago was really severe fatigue. And I actually missed about 6 weeks of work one summer. And of course, I was going to the medical doctors and looking for answers. And eventually was diagnosed with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. And medications helped a little, but not much. And I heard about upper cervical chiropractic, how it had helped one woman with fibromyalgia. And so I, bit the bullet and went and started the treatments. And I've been under care for the last year. And I'm happy to say that in the last year, I've been able to resume competitive dancing. And I've actually won 5 first-place trophies. And 2 weeks ago, I won a world championship.
Congratulations. We're glad you're with us. And you believe you have something to share.
Well, I'm James out of Norman, Oklahoma, and I got trigeminal neuralgia at the time, called TN. It's had an extraction of a tooth. Came out of it, pain was still there. Doctor said it must be in my head or it was a dry spot or something, but it wouldn't go away. and it got worse and worse. And to describe the pain a little bit, it'd be like an open tooth with an exposed nerve, and somebody's jamming you with cellophane or something is hitting it and making it hurt. And got so bad that after 10 years, I was in the process of completing suicide. It hurt. And my wife heard Luella speak on the radio. They took me to a doctor, and they did that service. And when I left, got in the car, I thought, what a ripoff. I didn't feel anything. When I got home, the pain began to break up. And by the second treatment, the pain was only about half the time. By the third treatment, it was gone completely. That was 2 years ago, and my life's back, and I can do this. And for those out there that know TN, you can't touch your face. When it's there, even the wind that blows causes the pain to come. It's gone. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. That's wonderful. Thank you. I see a hand back here. Let's see what you have to share with us.
I have a friend that has a digestive problem, and her son has attention deficit disorder. Could this help either one of those?
It's a great question for our doctor.
Even though we often see major improvements for both digestive disorders and ADD, let me say again that we do not treat any condition. We simply restore body balance and remove nerve interference from occurring in close proximity to the brainstem. That's the most critical area of the spinal cord. Best way I can describe it is what happens to your car if you continue to drive it while it's misaligned. Over time, everything is going to break down. You can keep replacing the tires, but until you have the car aligned, you'll just be wasting your money. The same thing for headaches or ADD or hundreds of other conditions. You can keep taking the medications, but if the atlas is out of its proper position and causing the problem, it's not going to go away until you get your atlas corrected.
Does anyone else have another success story to share? All right. Hi.
Hi. My name is Michael Kaiser. I'm from Virginia Beach. I started to develop upper back and neck pain in the late 70s and early 80s, and I'd been to many doctors, got a lot of different diagnoses, a lot of different medication. Nothing helped. By 1996, chronic neck pain. I had headaches every day. When I would look up, my hearing would cut out, and I knew it was time to get help. So I finally checked out upper cervical chiropractic, and after a couple weeks, the headaches were pretty much gone. The neck was a lot better. After 6 weeks, no neck pain, no headache pain. And since the late 70s, I haven't been able to throw overhand. And by, say, 6 to 8 months later, I could throw overhand again. I had to learn to adapt. I learned how to throw underhand because I thought it was over. My doctor said it's just something you have to live with. And I didn't have to. It was like a miracle. And everything's better now. Food tastes better. I can sit. I didn't realize how uncomfortable I was sitting all the time, and now I can sit and I'm very comfortable. I can sleep through the night. It's terrific. It's a miracle.
Thank you so much for sharing that comment, Michael. Thank you. Right, oh, yes.
So how can I know my atlas is out of position?
That's a good question.
Only by being examined. The frightening thing is that a misaligned atlas could be causing serious degeneration for years without you even knowing it. Pain is often the last symptom to occur when there's a problem. Look at heart attacks or cancers. Of course, we all know to have periodic checks for these conditions, but very few people know to have their atlases examined and corrected so that hundreds of different conditions can be avoided before they even start.
Karen, let me say right here that it's so important for parents to have their children's atlases examined as soon after birth as possible. Some of us have had our atlas out of position since birth, and the problems start right there. And some of them don't even manifest till later on in life. So if the parents could get their children checked immediately upon birth, that'd be wonderful.
Luella, I actually have in the audience with me a mother who can testify to the importance of what you just said. Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Tammy Blomgren, and I'm from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and I've been fortunate to be under upper cervical chiropractic care all my life, so I'm giving that benefit to my children. I have a 3-year-old son who has been very healthy. He's been sick 4 times in his life, no ear infections, and this, my daughter Amanda was adjusted at birth, so both my children will benefit from it.
Thank you so much.
Karen, I want to say, too, that not everyone is going to respond immediately after the first correction like some of us have. Some of us will take a long time to respond. There are conditions that are not related to nerve flow restriction or to body imbalance at all. And some of us have waited so long to get under care that we may not respond with all the results that we want. But we have found again and again, if people would get under this care when they're young and get periodic checks, keep the atlas corrected, or if there is a condition that's going on right now, get under care and get your atlas corrected before that condition progresses any further.
So do all chiropractors know how to do this?
No, remember there are only about 2,000 worldwide who are trained in this procedure. It takes months of postgraduate study and years of practice. But Karen, I think it's important to say right here that there are over 250 different chiropractic procedures that are available to people today, and every single one of them has created a miracle story that's equal to mine. But we're talking about the upper cervical procedure because that's the one that turned my life around.
Luella, you mentioned to me before the program began that you believe making sure your atlas is in the right position will eventually become the first step everyone takes in both preventative as well as crisis care. It's going to change healthcare as we know it today.
Well, Karen, no one single thing is a cure for everything, but when the public understands how fundamental this is to healthcare, it will change how we take care of ourselves and how we take care of our children.
I think we have time for one more brief testimony. Would anyone like to share? Oh, all right, great. Hi.
Hey, my name is Brad Beckworth, and I'm from Augusta, Georgia. I have what they call grand mal seizures. I had them at the age of 23. Neurosurgeons basically gave me a lot of medication and just basically doped me up. And after about 2 years of that, a friend of mine, suggested that I go to an upper cervical chiropractor. Of course, I thought they were a bunch of quacks, but I went anyway. And through the grace of God and my doctor, through several months of correction, I got to the point where I finally came off the medication and been seizure-free. I'm 37 years old, so.
Thank you, Brad. The National Awareness Campaign for Upper Cervical Care assists people free of charge throughout the U.S. and Canada who need to locate an upper cervical doctor in their area. For that information, as well as a free 60-minute audio tape full of excellent information about upper cervical health care, call toll-free 1-888-622-8221. It is our hope that this program will indeed change your future and the future of your children. Thank you for joining us. Good job. Thanks for coming.
Hello. I hope that you walk away from this program with more hope than you've had in a long, long time. But I want it to be realistic hope. Even though hundreds of different conditions are being helped or eliminated completely, I have to tell you that, again, we just never know how each individual person is going to respond. Are there people with herniated discs or migraines or carpal tunnel or sciatica or epilepsy or neuropathy that have been helped majorly by this? Oh, yes. But that does not necessarily mean that everyone diagnosed with these conditions will improve too. We just never know how much this procedure is going to affect a particular condition. But we do know that when your atlas is corrected and body balance is restored and proper nerve flow is finally reaching every part of the body, healing happens. And when that healing takes place, multiple conditions that don't seem to have any commonality are either completely eliminated or helped to some degree or another. Now, the chances of this procedure being a real help to you increase the sooner you get under care. And moms and dads, I can't say it enough, get your child's atlas examined yesterday. Children respond the best to this care because they don't have years of problems behind them to overcome. Richard and I have 0 medical bills for Shannon because this type of care keeps her so well. If we would all have our children under this care at birth and have them checked regularly as they grow up, our children would have a chance at life and health that you and I never had. And I will tell you, as a disabled mom, it has been worth everything I have been through to discover this care and be able to offer it to my daughter Shannon. I think because I have suffered a lot, I would love to be able to guarantee that this procedure is going to help you personally, but I can't. There just aren't any guarantees. But it is my hope that now that you know about this type of health care, it will be just as healing and just as life-changing for you as it has been for me.